You are now listening to Fallen Hour Radio.
Well, welcome back to the podcast, and tonight's episode we are actually jumping into Christmas lore, and I mean, especially getting into this whole year, Krampus and the real spirit of Christmas ties into everything that's happening. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks that Christmas is happy, jolly Santa Claus and Coca-Cola. But the actual real history behind Christmas and St. Nicholas himself is dark.
Yeah, it is.
And that's kind of what we're getting into tonight. And
a lot of the lore, like, of all these different, like, characters around this holiday, or even, like, during the winter and all that, it involves a lot of, like, murder and just darkness.
Right. And we're calling this episode Krampus and Friends. Is that your suggestion?
I was joking.
Just kidding. But
it's not just Krampus, like we're gonna go Krampus, but then we thought I don't know, there might be a lot of people doing Krampus, so
right. Well, everyone's doing.
So we figured like just Christmas lore in general.
We're hitting a season with podcasting and podcasters coming out. A huge community out there now.
Yeah.
And
especially because of the whole pandemic and all that,
right?
Everybody's just home and thought, well, let's make a podcast,
right? And everybody's starting to get into. Well, I mean, especially the lore podcasts. Those especially are the ones researching pretty much all the same things around the same time of year, all the damn time. Summer comes around, it's Bigfoot.
Yeah. Christmas
comes around, it's got to be Krampus or Santa Claus. Which Santa Claus people. I've seen people trying to research Santa Claus, and it's like, he's not real. St. Nicholas, on the other hand, is an interesting person.
He's real.
Right.
Santa Claus is real.
Right. So,
to all the younger audience, don't listen to him.
Oh, right. Spoiler alert. Santa Claus is fake. No, but I mean, we've grown up. Christian household, Pentecostal. We've learned about Christmas in a sense of Jesus and the birth. And I mean, this holiday is a huge Christian holiday, but there's also other ties to different cultures around the world that have their own, what do you call it? What is the Yuletide?
Yeah.
Characters coming around Christmas time.
Yeah.
And they all have kind of the same ideology of where they're either giving gifts
or taking,
right,
or just straight up abusing you,
right. And
it's like either the giving, like, rewarding you for being good,
right,
or they're basically punishing you for being bad.
So how did you want to take this podcast? Let's have you start. Like, this was your, well, actually this is my idea to do Krampus. But now that you...
Yeah, like for the longest time, even during Halloween, you were like, we got to do Krampus. We got to do Krampus. We got to do Krampus.
And I was Krampus for Halloween.
And then I sent you a really horrific photo of a woman devouring a child. It was a painting. I mean, it was a painting.
Right, Gryla.
But you were like, what the hell is that? I said, this is Gryla, and we have to do either an episode on her or actually kind of touch down on who she is and what she does, because it was crazy, man. Just like looking into it, I was like, wow, it's kind of really, really interesting, but really, really dark.
We did somewhat of we tried to do a podcast last night. Gryla took us like a good 7-10 minutes, so why don't we just start there? Do you want to start at Gryla?
Oh man, last night was a fail.
Oh God, I know.
It was good. I mean, like, it was like podcast worthy. It was actually a pretty good episode.
Well, I guess
I was like, okay, this will be a good one to pop out, and then just. Yeah, things started coming up, and we're like, oh, yeah, let's just do it. I guess tomorrow.
We could probably publish that episode, just no intro, nothing, just put it out there.
With that little tidbit?
Yeah, and see if people like it. So...
And it just kind of ends abruptly.
Right, which is fine. I mean, people like volume. So, how do you want to take this episode? Where do you want to start?
Well, I guess we could just start with one of these characters of lore and just
Well, I guess
find the similarities with them.
Well, let's start with Saint Nicholas.
Okay.
Have you learned about Saint Nicholas?
A little bit, like not a lot, but a little bit.
Well, I got you covered. I did.
This has been an extremely busy month for me, so
Right.
I could barely even research anything.
And these podcasts are starting to get really meticulous, especially with research. I mean, we don't want to upset people who are really into this stuff,
Yeah.
who are really into St. Nicholas, history-wise, people who are listening for the history, people who are listening for the lore side of things or the horror stories that come along with them. If you get a fact wrong, people get pissed off.
They literally just, they go off on you.
Right.
One little tiny little thing, and they'll just like blow it up.
Right. And we've been subject to that many times. And we
remember like once.
Right. We always preface it anyways that we're we are pretty serious about doing podcasts and things of that nature. But I mean, when we get on a certain subject, we don't have the time to become total experts on it unless it's along our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Which I believe this is somewhat falls along our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So we have tidbits we can throw in place here and there and say that we actually know about this thing.
The only thing I remember that we got really how do you say this? Attacked.
Right. Rebuked.
Yeah. On was when we did something that had to do with Native American lore.
Right.
And it was maybe one or two people came out saying you shouldn't be talking about this, you shouldn't be talking about that, especially during this time or that time, and blah blah blah, and you're not allowed to talk about that because you're not Native American. I'm like, my last name is the most Native American name you can have out there. So
yeah,
excuse me, but I am.
It's so stupid.
But I was just like, yeah, you know what? Like, just trying to like share, like,
right.
Some of these stories and everything. And
I will say that you look more Native American than I do myself.
Yeah.
They get that a lot. This is stupid. You're Native American? Like, well, I think so.
That's what they tell me.
It's not just a tan. So let's start with St. Nicholas.
All right.
And this guy, especially his history was insane, but there's also some moral things that come along with St. Nicholas that are lightning, but some of the history is dark. Did you actually find out how he died?
Let me see. I think it was by an emperor. That's all I know.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
by
right.
the hands of the emperor.
Right. So he was basically executed.
Yeah.
This man lived about 1800 years ago, and this was somewhat just after Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So Jesus was about 2,000 years ago, a little over 2,000 years ago now. And this man had to have had fresh history from then. I mean, not only scripture, but word of mouth.
He was alive like only 300 years after.
Right.
Wasn't he?
Right. Somewhere around there. He was medievalish times. And they had emperors. There was a lot of debates within the Catholic Church, early Catholic Church, and a lot of trouble with the empires, and especially in Jesus's time, there was even the prophets then were having trouble with a coming Savior. And they had trouble of Jesus even doing things on a certain day, Sunday. Mm-hmm. And he had he was aligned with previous gospels, but he was also showing them that it doesn't have to be a certain way. He was doing it. He was basically working on Sundays and things of that nature. So
like breaking down boundaries and barriers and doors.
Right. And a lot of that happens with paganism, or what you would call when you do things once a year. Traditional.
Yeah.
If it's traditional style of these teachings and things of that nature, you'll hit walls everywhere you go. I mean, this happens. We see this all the time.
Yeah.
Especially growing up Native American, but also growing up Pentecostal, having a line of preachers. You hit these walls everywhere. And this isn't a new thing. This happened with St. Nicholas.
Mm-hmm.
And St. Nicholas was a Greek priest born in 280 AD. St. Nicholas became a bishop of Myra, small town in modern Turkey. And this is kind of his backstory. During the Greek persecution, the Roman Empire was destroying Bibles. The Roman Empire was also forcing priests to renounce Christianity or face execution. And that was around the time when St. Nicholas was really getting his name.
Yeah.
Now they were facing execution. At this time, St. Nicholas grew a reputation of being a fiery defender of the church doctrine. St. Nicholas became known as a patron of children, and he was actually defending the church doctrine Constantine was the emperor at this time, right?
I am not sure.
It was somewhere along there, but Constantine was tied into this one history that I found in St. Nicholas.
Yeah.
And this is off of actually stnicholas.com. There's like a whole thing. The church put this together, whatever. And St. Nicholas was so Constantine was calling forth a crapload. I believe it was like 500 different priests, paganism priests, and they were all coming together to debate whether or not the Bible should stay in play, whether the teachings in the Bible are valid.
Yeah.
And this is a crazy story about St. Nicholas. I'll tell this story just because it kind of gives a narrative of why they call him like a fire defender. There is this priest in there, I forgot his name, he's like Arius or something like that. Mm-hmm. And he was either a Catholic priest or he was a pagan priest. I don't remember. I didn't read that far into him, but he was getting up and he was totally trashing teachings in the Bible and saying that he was totally for the ruling of the Bible.
Yeah.
He wasn't weighing the pros. He was weighing more the con side. And St. Nicholas is sitting there in this meeting and out of nowhere gets up and slaps this dude in the face.
Oh, wow.
And it was totally outside of his character.
Yeah.
And Constantine in the story was sitting there present with them, and he puts him in a jail cell. And he says, well, it's illegal to hit somebody in my presence, especially during a meeting like this. And since this is it's almost like another law system with the church back then. So he said, since we have all the priests here, why don't you debate whether or not we punish St. Nicholas or let him free? And during this night, St. Nicholas was thrown naked inside of a cell. And during that night, he had a guard watching over him. And St. Nicholas was praying. And he was visited in this story by Jesus and Mary. Mary brought him a priestly robe.
Okay, yeah, I've heard this.
Right.
Yeah.
So she was basically giving back his robes. She brought him a robe, and it was a priestly robe. He was actually dressed as a priest inside of the jail cell. He was once naked like 2 minutes ago. And Jesus was also present with her. And he hands St. Nicholas scripture. And St. Nicholas studies these things all night. He's praying, and then the guard sees him dressed as a priest and has a Bible in his hands. And he had nothing in his cell at this time.
Yeah,
Nobody.
So they toss him in there naked.
Right.
He turns around 2 seconds later, and he's sitting there fully clothed, reading a Bible.
Right. It's almost like the scene in Santa Claus where he can't get rid of his fat or shave his, you know what I mean? It just comes back. And so this guard runs off.
The only reason why you say that is because you just watched that today, didn't you?
Yeah.
For the first time in like 10 years.
Yeah. So this guard runs off to Constantine, and he tells him, he says that St. Nicholas he's not naked anymore. He has a priestly robe on. He said he was visited by Mary and Jesus, and he gave him scripture and basically reinstated him in a sense that he was a priest. So Constantine sees this as a good omen, lets him free. Okay. And then that's as far as I got from there. But it goes on that St. Nicholas became a patron of children. In one story, saving 3 girls from prostitution. He delivered 3 bags of gold to the father to get him out of debt.
Yeah.
Basically getting his girls out of prostitution. And he was also said to have resurrected 3 boys who had been murdered by an innkeeper. In the 13th century, Saint Nicholas was then known as a magical bringer of gifts. So it was kind of like this this history of Saint Nicholas. He was performing miracles, and not only that, the thing about him was he was a saint and he gave people gifts. And then we get along the lines of how Santa Claus came to be.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that?
About Santa Claus?
Yeah, Santa Claus.
I mean, we talked about it a little earlier, but you know more about that than I do.
Right. He was.
Well, I know about it, but I think you can explain it a lot better.
And Saint Nicholas he isn't the only what they call good winter men. It's like when people that come in winter. And there is Saint Nicholas, there's Santa Claus, and a guy I know by DED.
Mm-hmm.
Morose, something like that. Anyways, if it wasn't for the immigrants from the Netherlands who brought Saint Nicholas, also known to them as Sinterklaas, to the New World colonies.
He was from Spain, wasn't he? Sinterklaas?
Sinterklaas?
Yeah.
Well, this is like these were immigrants, and I'm pretty sure that Saint Nicholas's heritage was,
because from what I read, Sinterklaas is a totally different thing.
Right.
And it's actually very controversial. It's even today.
Interesting.
Because he comes with. Okay, this is where it gets really controversial.
Right.
I think he hails from Spain, and he has somebody with him. Kind of how Saint Nicholas or Santa Claus has Krampus.
Right. Well, Saint Nicholas.
He has a partner with him too.
Right.
But his partner is Black Peter.
Tell me
it's
about
actually somebody that's literally in blackface.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like really, really controversial.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. They've been trying to change this whole thing and, change the story behind this or ban this. And it's still even a big deal today. The last time they tried, it really got into a really big controversial thing was back in 2013.
Right.
And it's still people are fighting to keep this version of Black Peter.
Okay, so I see what you're saying. I've seen this face now.
Yeah.
It's where Peter's dressed in his robes. He has his skin color, which is like our skin color, and then he has a black face.
Yeah.
There's
even one where he's just black, a black face, or either his whole body is just literally painted black, and he has his lips are painted red, and
so
he has really they make him have really curly hair, and it's just really it's offensive.
Right. So when did they try to make Peter blackface?
It always has been.
Ever since
Sinterklaas.
Interesting.
Yeah, ever since that came to be, he always had that partner, Black Peter, with him.
Wow.
And it was just it is. It's really, really, really controversial.
That's interesting.
Because he's literally Sinterklaas's slave.
Oh, right.
And he is the one that basically takes the children and puts them in his bag and
so
punishes them.
This is basically another form of Krampus.
Yeah, in a way.
Right. So where along the lines because Krampus if this was a thing since Saint Nicholas, then it's
the same
the same origins,
almost the same concept,
right?
But it's very racial,
right?
It's really a racist version.
So
of it.
Do you think that these immigrants were the birthers of this Black Peter?
I don't know. I didn't really get too far into it.
Right, because since he's always been around, since they brought Sinterklaas, who was basically Saint Nicholas himself.
Yeah.
And then we get along the lines of Krampus he's not a new thing. He's been around for centuries.
Yeah.
And this had to have been around the time
literally ancient.
Right. I said rye. All right, let me finish out these notes and then we'll get into some conversation here.
Okay.
All right, so for all of you that love Santa Claus and teach your kids about Santa Claus that he comes down a chimney that you probably do not have in your house. I don't have a chimney in my house. I already got about like 6 minutes. I can get through this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Santa Claus would not appear until 1823 in the poem The Night Before Christmas. For many of you who are history buffs out there, American pop culture modernized St. Nicholas. A cartoonist, Thomas Nash, created the image we know today. Advertisements from Coca-Cola helped lock in Santa Claus in the 1930s, and this is when people started attributing Santa Claus to coming down the chimney and bringing you gifts. And it comes from the lineage of St. Nicholas.
Yeah.
Krampus, this is the only Krampus thing I've actually written down. Krampus shows up in town the night of December 5th, known as Krampusnacht.
Krampusnacht?
Yeah. Krampus.
I believe you're saying it. It's like knock, like the way you pronounce it. Like even I've heard it a billion times and I still can't pronounce it right. But it's like Krampus night.
Which it's almost on the nose the way I'm saying it of Krampus night.
Yeah.
I'm just saying Krampus not. Anyways, I had this thing.
So basically, like Santa Claus's image and what we know as Santa Claus today is because of marketing,
right?
And just literally got like a pop culture revision.
Right, so the Coca-Cola...
Thanks to Coca-Cola.
Right, Coca-Cola had a bigger marketing budget than the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Especially Greek... is it Greek? Is it Greek Catholic Church? Is it Greek Catholic or is it... What the hell is it? It had to have been a Greek Catholic Church because this is where... this is where St. Nicholas came to be. Mm-hmm. So, the Greek Catholic Church didn't have enough money to... basically go against a multi-billion-dollar... Well, actually, this is 18... Did I say 1830? I'm trying to think of how...
Like your brain's locking
I'm trying to think of if Coca-Cola was actually that successful then. Mm-hmm. Because they didn't sell bottles of Coke for like 3 years or something like that.
Yeah.
But they might have had the money. Anyways, they were the responsible for what we know today as St. Nicholas in the red jacket drinking Coca-Cola.
That's why I only see it from Coca-Cola.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is stupid. I mean,
like they own Santa Claus.
Right. Now it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And actually, it's from the book The Night Before Christmas.
Yeah.
And I think it was either the book that got the Nash dude to cartoonize Santa Claus, or it was actually Coca-Cola. Either one, I think somebody owns the image of Santa Claus. I'm just trying to get through my notes here, and then we can start talking a little more about this. Krampus is a horned anthropomorphic entity, and that's basically attributing Krampus to the physiology and psychology of what a human would be, or a human-like entity.
Yeah.
So this is my thing last night, is Krampus has basically a moral compass.
Yeah, that's what you were trying to get out last night.
Right.
It wasn't coming out.
Right. And the word I was trying to like get in my head is just this reference to Krampus just totally summed it up for me today.
Okay.
Is I was reading on Krampus and I was like, what the, why does he theme? I couldn't get the word, and this word is perfect. Anthropomorphic.
Okay.
Tendency to human psychology attributed to human traits, emotions, or intentions to non-human entities. So he's not human.
Yeah.
He's the ghost of St. Nicholas. He's a counterpart. He's a demon. And he has a moral compass. He's not going after good kids.
Yeah.
Which means he's still carrying some of the ideologies of St. Nicholas.
Yeah.
Of St. Nicholas
basically punishing the bad.
Right. So that's kind of the thing though, is because if he's a shadow of St. Nicholas, we've kind of gotten into how this actually came to be. Do you want to actually give that out right now?
That is just, it's a dark origin. Like
right.
This version of it is dark as hell.
And for you guys that don't know who Krampus is, he is a figure in Alpine folklore. There's like a countries of Alpine countries. Yeah. He is a seasonal character who appears during Christmas to punish children who are misbehaving.
Yeah.
So I'll put these out there.
Like he shows up in the beginning of
right. I didn't put
of December.
I'll just make sure I don't have the one you're about to say.
Before St. Nicholas Day. Yeah.
Right.
I think the night before St. Nicholas Day.
He comes on December 5th,
Yep.
Krampus night. And then St. Nicholas is
the 6th.
The 6th. Krampus, in many traditional writings, assisted St. Nicholas. There are mentionings of the pair traveling together, visiting homes, one to reward and the other to punish. St. Nicholas is one of three and the first of three good December figures: St. Nicholas, Santa Claus, and D.D. Morose. So now that's kind of an interesting thing. Now we pulled something new about this finally. So now that I said that you're gonna help me get this thought out, because once I hear you say it, it's gonna click in my head. So Saint Nicholas is a good counterpart. He's totally good.
Yeah.
Has no bad in him. He's
a saint,
right? Especially from growing up. We actually did.
But like actually reading into it and like researching this, I look at him in a totally different way. Right. Like when I see him, like this guy can not let that happen and be a good person, because that is just disgusting.
Right. But his story is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was reading it, I was like, wow, this guy was actually a really good person.
Yeah.
And it gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling you want to feel around Christmas. Saint Nicholas was,
but it's like the
dark side of it,
the dark lore and stories that kind of spawn from who this is.
Yeah,
is
right.
Really dark.
So Saint Nicholas he grew up and he was a totally good person from birth.
So like the true history of him is like really light and good and
right. The thing about him though is, in a lot of writings he's compared to Jesus. Yeah. I mean, I found some writings that said he was born of Mary and Joseph himself.
Yeah, I remember me saying that.
But there's also another writings that say that his mom was named Mary and his dad was named Joseph, but no relation. But he grew up totally a good spirit, didn't do nothing bad, didn't go out and party with his friends, things like that. And his uncle was a priest. Actually, his St. Nicholas would be his predecessor come after the priest saw that this kid was living a good life and recruited him, told his parents to raise him in a priestly-like manner, gave him pointers, and then came and checked on him, got him to be a priest. He held prayer services all night long after he was actually recruited as a priest. Wow. And vigils and things like all night long, no matter what time of day it was, he was always in the church doing something for people. And his parents died, and his parents were enormously wealthy, had, I don't know how much money. This is where
for that time,
right? This is where Saint Nicholas gets his wealth to give out gold and to pay off debts. Is he had a lot of money, and
that's like what he has to like do good things, like what he uses to actually give gifts and help people, and reward people for being good and just trying to help everybody out.
Right. So
that's where he gets this from.
He had a visitation, or God told him to sell all, because he didn't know what to do with his wealth. And there was a picture I saw of him, of like a painting, and he's like, he doesn't know what to do at this point. And God tells him to sell all his earthly belongings, which is all his money his parents left him, and use it for the gospel. So what he does is he becomes a totally Saint Nicholas character you see today. Is he starts giving all this money out for people, and along the lines of this, he was raising people from the dead and things of that nature, thus making Santa Claus later on. All right, so I wanted to get all that out, and I want you to talk about Krampus and how
the dark side of it.
Right, the one we like the most, lore story.
All right, so like where he came from, like this is one of the stories where he came from, is it takes a really dark spin on Saint Nicholas. He like it had to do with when he died.
Right.
After Saint Nicholas passed away, or well, basically, was died from the hands of the emperor.
Right.
He came back to life. So he came back to life, but the way this whole story happens, it makes Saint Nicholas dark as well.
Right.
He literally beat the hell out of, was it a bishop?
Yeah.
And he like beat a bishop to death or something like that.
Right.
after he came back
Yeah.
from the dead, and then that spawned Krampus.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, he was like born from Saint Nicholas. So basically, the evil thing that came out of Saint Nicholas after he came back from the dead spawned this creature known as Krampus. And now Krampus is the one that was basically his counterpart now, who goes along with him to punish the naughty kids. And he just kind of Saint Nicholas just only focuses on the good kids.
Right.
He goes out and he'll reward the good kids and all of that, and he doesn't even bother thinking about the naughty kids. He lets Krampus handle them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now that's the thing I have trouble with. There's so many things I have trouble with.
Yeah.
We've always dealt about, especially paranormal, dying, what happens when you die. We've grown up knowing what happens, at least to our beliefs.
Yeah.
But to a priest, when he died, why did basically a demon attach itself to?
Yeah, I know. Like, did it come back with him when he came back to life?
So
is this something that just was born out of him?
Now I have trouble with this because if he was a priest, so we got to get into the Christian side of things for a second. Just for a quick second, I don't want to bore anybody. But the Bible talks about when you die, you're either within a split second in hell or in heaven.
Yeah.
So if he was to go to heaven in a split second, why would he bring a demon back with him when he came back to life?
Exactly. That's what kind of gets me too.
Right. Mind blown. But
so was there something that he was doing that
then again,
caused him to go to hell, and then this thing just attached itself to him?
Right. But then again,
came back with him.
There's things we don't understand about, like the spiritual realm.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand like the story of how he was born.
I'm gonna give people out there a thing about demonology, a thing about the devil. Anyways, he's the ruler of. Do you know that? The ruler of the, what the hell they call it? It's either the air or anyways, the way they mention this in the Bible is the devil isn't currently in hell. He's actually there's 3 divisions of what they call heaven.
Yeah.
So there's earth, there's this space out here, which we would call space, and that's actually in a heaven. There's another one above that, and then I believe another one above that.
Yeah.
This one up here, I believe, is the real heaven. The one in between that is actually where warfare happens with what you would call archangels and demons.
Yeah.
So, is it possible that now I'm just trying to think about if he was actually a saint and went to heaven on his way up and on his way down,
something happened in that middle ground.
Right.
Is that what you're wondering?
Right, on a spiritual
plane.
Right. And a spiritual warfare kind of thing that happened with Saint Nicholas. And
so on his way down, something just attached itself to him.
Right, possibly. Or is it because that he died, he also stepped into a realm of death?
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of beings there as well.
Yeah.
Demons weren't popularized until Christianity. Before Christianity, demons were.
That's one of the things that kind of goes along with Krampus is like some of the imagery of him and everything was taken from like Christianity views or Catholic views.
Right, it had to have been because
tried to like basically demonize him.
Right,
like make him look more like a demonic being.
Right, like the devil.
Even like the chains like represent of them like trying to like basically chain him down.
Right. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And demons before Christianity, there was demons. You know that there was the word demon. And they weren't a bad character. They're actually a good character. There's actually another Saint Nicholas figure out there, and he is the frost demon.
Oh, wow.
But he's not a bad person as well. And he was actually named the demon before Christianity. So he actually predates also.
So just what the word came from.
Right.
actually derives from something even more ancient than
Right.
that.
And then they Christian beliefs came around, Catholic beliefs came around,
Yeah.
and now demons are demons. Maybe they didn't know how to
Categorize them?
categorize them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now it's just demon.
Right. You demon. But yeah, so I know that demons have always been here. Especially in creation.
Yeah.
God created the heavens and the earth, whatever. Demons were there before that.
Like they were already they already manifested.
So God created the heavens and the earth.
Yeah.
Second verse in Genesis, the earth was without void,
Yeah.
with void, which means something happened between there. There was demons there, and Scripture talks about the devil ruling over these inhabitants.
Yeah.
And then later in Scripture it says God turned the earth upside down and all its inhabitants, meaning there was inhabitants there before humans, which weren't dinosaurs, because dinosaurs came later on than the freaking meteor. Now we have fossils here. Right, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. I'm trying to work through this as we go, as this Krampus of why this ties into.
You're trying to like more so tie it with actual historical events,
Right, or Christian document
and Christian documents,
right,
Yeah.
of where Krampus would come from. I'm just trying to figure out why a saint would die, come back to life, and then bring a demon with him.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was trying to like when he came back, he just kind of like all I could see was like something just spawning from him, like his shadow.
But you know what's funny?
Like that's what I was thinking. Like something like he comes back and he kills this bishop, and all the evil basically comes out of his shadow, and his shadow grows into this beast known as Krampus.
Right. Know what's funny though?
What?
In psychology, they talk about shadow.
Yeah.
As being, I mean, especially serial killers talk about this. My dark passenger. Of being another person.
Yeah.
They traveled together. This is the thing we were trying to talk about last night. Is they traveled together, and Alethea put it perfectly. She was like, Krampus had to have had a split person, or not?
Yeah,
Krampus,
that's what we were just talking
Saint
about
Nicholas.
last night. Yeah.
Saint Nicholas had to have had a split personality if he came back to life.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and then she said it, and like I was thinking of this whole he has to be like, what if he's like a total Fight Club type moment
Right.
where he's just he thinks this person's somebody else, but it's really him,
Right.
and it's just his dark side, and it's just a split personality. So he's rewarding these kids,
Right.
giving them presents. And then he sees a naughty kid, and then just snap. He's just freaking beating the hell out of him in their sleep.
Right. And
that's just dark. It's just wicked.
right. And we had there was a story I told Markus is there was actually writings in, I forgot what they called it. Norse mythology. There was it's the most famous and most notable documents of Norse mythology. You get Krampus here, you get Gryla here, you get Saint Nicholas.
Yeah.
And well, not Saint Nicholas. He's not mythology. He's freaking a real person.
I think at this point I just keep agreeing. Yeah.
But you get all these characters out of this book, and a lot of lore that comes along in pop culture actually comes out of these writings. And it's an actual book. It was literature. And where the hell was I going with this?
Norse mythology.
Right.
Krampus.
Right. Gosh damn it! I had a cool
He
way of
lost
putting
it.
this.
I was
Gosh
talking
damn.
about when he was beating kids in their sleep.
Oh right, there was a
And then
story.
okay.
There was a story in there, and it talks about Krampus, because there was so many stories that were in this book. It's like a massive literature, and it talks about one belief that Krampus, so the kids wouldn't wake up.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So Saint Nicholas would come to bring gifts. Krampus would come to beat children with what would they call it?
Birch twigs.
A birch tree.
Birch tree or birch sticks or birch twigs.
I have my wife gave me an early Christmas present tonight, and we're on the 23rd tonight, and it actually has his birch wood with him.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's so freaking awesome.
Like a handful.
Right.
Yeah.
And Krampus would come in if they were a naughty children, and he would beat the hell out of them. And the thing about this was the kids wouldn't wake up.
Yeah.
And the writing says, this is the actual writing, it says the children will wake up the next morning either to receive gifts or to nurse their wounds. Could you imagine?
Just thinking about that, like you wake up in the morning, like going to open your presents, like, oh my God, like, yeah,
right,
like
wake up,
opening
like,
your presents, you look over and your little brother's laying there.
right.
Laying there just trying to nurse his bruises and wounds.
Or being that
Like,
mischievous.
what the hell did you do to deserve that?
Or being that mischievous kid, like, it's Christmas, oh God.
Wake up excited until you roll over and feel the pain.
You had a freaking funny thing last night, though, is that meme you shared. Or you were talking about.
Which one are you talking about? The Predator one?
Yeah. It says predator chasing me after what?
Yeah, what Predator sees after chasing me for 28 seconds, and it's those pictures of what they show when you have pain, like when your neck pain in your leg, and
they're like,
I was literally sitting on the corner of this couch crying, laughing so hard at that.
It's the funniest thing.
But I imagine that's what you'd look like waking up in the next morning.
Right. So
Krampus, he there's stories where he comes with Saint Nicholas,
right,
and there's also stories where he comes ahead of time, and he comes to punish the children beforehand or take them, depending on how bad the things you've done were.
Well, that makes sense with Krampus night, December 5th, and Saint Nicholas Day, which is like a priestly day.
During those, hold on, cut you off really quick. During those, Krampus nights and Krampus runs and all those, festivals and stuff.
Right.
Those were actually times where they thought, giving Krampus, offering him, a drink or, this or that, something to eat, will keep you from getting on his naughty list. Basically persuading him to leave you alone.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So these events that happen where all these Krampuses come along and they do this thing, they're actually a part of the culture so much.
Yeah.
Like you would see, basically how natives would see a medicine man, right? Or someone who has the power to actually talk to the saint.
In a way, yeah.
Right. So they would offer Krampus something.
Basically, you're like trying to bribe him from not beating your ass.
Right.
So the way this all started was there was actually these things called Saint Nicholas plays and stuff like that, where they were never always a big event. They weren't a parade. They weren't a big run. They weren't like a big gathering. They were actually they would happen at each person's home.
Right.
Yes. Because back then, way back then, these villages weren't very big. So there'd be somebody dressed up like St. Nicholas that would show up to your house and knock on your door and would talk to the children.
Wow. Yeah.
Would basically ask them if they've been naughty and have them recite their, what is it called? What the Catholics do.
Oh, you know what? I know what you're talking about. It's actually attributed to Saint Nicholas, and they recite this nowadays in prayer. It might be like a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not. I don't believe it's that. But
right. But it's somewhere along the lines.
Somewhere along the line of that. Yeah. I know it's going to hit me once we're done with this. But he would he'd be talking to them, asking them, if they've been naughty or if they've been nice.
Right.
And talking to them about this. In the meantime, behind him on their yard, on their lawn.
God, are you kidding me?
30 Krampus dancing around, taunting you, just looking at you like they want to beat your ass.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he would literally go to each house with 30 of these Krampus creatures in the yard behind him while he's talking to you. So the whole time you're talking to Saint Nicholas, you'd like peer behind him, and there's all these demonic characters and creatures
Well,
dancing and running around on the yard, and they're all drunk. Like they're all drunk.
this is the thing about this whole. I mean, this is a huge subject, and I think that even after Christmas, I want to continue this.
Yeah.
With Saint Nicholas, because there's so many ideologies that come along with Saint Nicholas. Not only that, because I believe he's the tie with he could be the tie with the podcast to actually dive into more of the church's beliefs. I don't want to get into like totally like doctrine. I want to get into the actual history of the Greeks, why they destroyed the Bibles and the Da Vinci Code and things of that nature, the Mona Lisa, and start dissecting those, because with Saint Nicholas in that image you just described is totally a god-like image. Is if you see, it's like how you see your father now, like how we see dad, is he's a kind person. But if you
step out of line,
right? If you step out of
something
line,
wrong,
right? There's a repercussion,
yeah,
in some way, and that is exactly the image you just painted with Saint Nicholas and Krampus behind them. It's like he's almost, well, that's basically what it is. Is I don't understand. Well, I guess I do understand is how the Catholic Church sees saints.
Yeah.
Now anyways, because I hope that this podcast didn't offend anybody, because I know that St. Nicholas is actually a big thing to Catholic Church, to Greek Catholic churches as well. There's actually a predecessor who is actually he's an actual real predecessor. The way you did that, I thought someone was standing and was like, huh? There's an actual real current predecessor of St. Nicholas who is alive today and in St. Nicholas's church where he was buried.
Yeah.
And he tells everyone every year, Santa Claus isn't real.
Yeah.
The reason of Christmas, or Saint Nick, is Saint Nicholas.
Yeah.
Is this guy was an admirable character.
That was like our mom growing up. You know, she was not shy about it.
Right.
Like she was just like, "Oh no, Santa's dead, baby."
Yes.
He died a long time ago. I'm like, what?
I believe that
didn't even give it a chance.
But they all knew about Saint Nicholas.
I was like, what do you mean?
That's that's the thing though, is
sitting
that
there with your lip shaking.
Everyone in our family knows about Saint Nicholas. They know that he was a real person. I didn't wrap my head around that until now.
When
I was
alive, like, oh, is he real? Is he a real person?
Right.
Yeah, a long time ago, but he's dead now. I'm like,
in my head,
what?
You should have clarified this, Mom, because in my head, Santa Claus was rolling around in a sleigh in like 30, 40 years ago, and he's now dead. I didn't know he was an actual saint. But I just want to say that I want to offend anybody about this total. The way we do a podcast is we try to wrap our head around certain things. Yeah. And Saint Nicholas to me now is someone to look up to. I mean, especially with his ideologies, the way he lived his life, his actual, he's the way you would see a pastor. Yeah. Right. Like how the Christian church sees, basically they see the way Jesus lived his life. The way someone lives their life, especially, is a way to step into. I mean, you want to admire that person. It's like that camera can shut off. This one will keep going. Okay. Is when you see someone like that, it changes the way you live your life in a lot of times.
Like you want to strive to be
that person.
Yeah.
So when you find someone like Saint Nicholas, or you find someone like Peter and things of that nature, is you want to strive to be that person, but they're also looking to somebody else. Yeah. Is there Saint Nicholas was a priest, and he looked to Jesus as his. Yeah. So when you follow along that lineage, you find your path of enlightenment and things of that nature. So yeah, Saint Nicholas to me is actually someone who, especially reading on him all day, someone actually come to admire, and he's actually a really cool person. But he has a lot of cool lore to lend to the podcast as well.
Yeah, it's like these people like take this person and start developing their own stories and lore and legends of him, which is what like where this one spawned from that I was just telling you about that was really dark. Right. Like, so like there's always like a history behind everything, and it's always kind of, you really got to dig to find out what the true history is. Right. Yeah. Like this one where he comes back from the dead and beats the hell out of his bishop, and Krampus is born from him. That one, that's not real, but it's just really dark and interesting to find.
To some cultures though, that
like
is,
some places it is like, that's really real to them. Right. Yeah. So it's just like finding what's really,
which can also lend a scariness, especially
yeah,
to
like that is like the only reason why like that is like really crazy to me is because that just paints a whole different picture to Santa Claus or to Saint
Right.
Nicholas, or it just makes it like dark.
right. And that's the whole thing about Christmas. It's
Like,
like
I don't know if I want Santa Claus.
I mean,
to come
especially I mean, you want to talk about Christianity. Jesus was killed.
yeah,
Right. Now we celebrate Christmas. We have the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
The bulbs on the Christmas tree were actually adopted by paganism.
yeah,
The garland was a descendant, basically, of thorns, because the tree was trying to the church was trying to compromise with paganism, and we'll put the thorns on there to symbolize Jesus's thorns, and we'll put the apples on there
Yeah.
to accommodate paganism, which was actually a sense of traditionalism in the church. And you get a lot of these senses, and when you look at the real spirit of Christmas, it's this whole dark theme, but also a spirit of enlightenment through these people who live these lives.
yeah.
And why we celebrate Christmas today. I mean, it's a sense of darkness to it, and I would say a really cool kind of darkness. I mean,
Yeah.
it has a lot of cool lore to it, and a lot
It's
of
just interesting, like to actually see the history of all these different places, you know,
Right.
all these different countries, their beliefs, their history, their lore, and how it all somehow kind of intertwines and ties together. But like I was looking into this, and there was a lot of things that the church tried to drive out,
right,
and every time they tried to ban, like even Krampus was banned for a while,
right.
and all it did was make that more appealing to the people. It seemed
Right.
forbidden, so they wanted it even more.
Krampus was he banned by the church, or was he banned by what was he banned
by the church.
Okay, so Krampus was banned by the church, and maybe New Year's. We're trying to look for a New Year's podcast. Maybe we could cover Gryla, possibly.
Yeah.
Krampus was banned by the church. Gryla, on the other hand, was banned by an actual government.
Yeah, the government stepped in and literally put a stop to that because they said that it was too
Effective.
too horrible of a story to intimidate your children with.
Right.
Like you're gonna give these kids problems.
Right. And I bet you this is still an Icelandic law. That it's illegal to use Gryla, because now she's painted as a happy person, and she has Yule lads that are going and giving gifts out even now. So it could even still be a law that's you can't use Gryla.
You know, like something that I heard that about Iceland,
What's that?
that it was what did you do?
I just restarted it
Okay.
within a split second.
That the name Iceland was not always Iceland. It was actually it used to be Snowland.
What the heck? Are you serious?
Yeah. When I heard that, I was like, no way, really?
I don't know why when you said that, I just got an image of the dude in Frozen inside of that little shop, that big old dude, and he's like, I don't know why that dude just popped in my head. That's funny.
Yeah. When I heard that, I was like, no way, really? That's crazy. Like when I heard the word Snowland, all I could think was the North Pole, like just this magical place.
Right. Oh
Yeah,
wow.
So
So, are you finished
that
on
was like
Krampus?
a fun little fact.
Right. Do you have anything
No,
more?
there's some of like we'll just get like through some of the details about
Right.
him that are like interesting. He's just this demonic looking creature,
Right.
who has, giant horns, and some stories he has hooves,
Right.
and others he has one human foot and one hoof.
Oh wow. I didn't know that.
Like
Which
I don't
kind
know
of
what the story is behind that. I could not find it, but I just found it really interesting.
that has to come along the ideology of.
One foot in hell and one on.
It
Sounds cool.
That's got to be like half saint, half beast.
Yeah, that's
kind
what I
of
mean.
thing.
That, like, when I saw that, I was like kind of even thinking about that whole Saint Nicholas split personality type thing,
Right.
where this is like half human, half
Right.
demonic
Well,
evil thing
I believe
that
now.
punishes you. So what if he just morphs into this being and he's like still half
Right.
Saint Nicholas and half Krampus?
Right. So it has to. I mean, especially being a saint, some people look up to him. There has to be. I don't know how they do it though. I have to learn on it.
But you know that goes along the line with the demon theory,
right?
Where they could try to mimic people.
Right.
They could try to basically mimic you, your looks or anything like that, but they can't quite get it right.
Right.
So there's always something off about them.
Right.
Like there was stories where men in black could be demonic.
Right.
And the reason why they look so weird and strange is because they can't quite get the look right.
Right. Well, my thing was about the Men in Black is a hierarchy of aliens.
Yeah.
I mean, a hierarchy
I'm
of
talking about that.
of demons. There's a hierarchy of angels, and the Men in Black being the angelic.
The ones that deal with humanity.
Right.
Yeah.
And they look human. That
So,
was my
like,
thing about it.
That thought crossed my mind, and then so I kind of thought he tries to look human,
Right.
but he can't quite get it right.
Oh, I know what you're saying now.
Yeah.
So I don't know why this didn't make sense in me earlier, but being a humanoid figure,
Yeah.
he could be basically what is classified as an angel, being a humanoid person, but in the demon sense, where it's just mirrored image of this hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a demon, but he's trying to be human.
Yeah. in
That's
a
how
way.
he's created.
So like he still has human features,
Right.
but more so this creature,
Right.
the features of this creature. So like that's what I was kind of like trying to like wrap my head around this whole freaking.
But then
thing.
again, even in the angelic
how
realms,
they came up with this person or this character.
right? I mean, we're getting like real deep into like we're actually painting him as like a real demon, which he could possibly be.
Yeah, like they were saying like the church was trying to do that too.
Right.
You know, like trying to like make him more demonic.
Right.
Like basically he's like, you know, has attributes like of the devil and stuff like
Right.
that. And even some stories where he's the son of hell.
Right. And we've heard
So-
famous person, a famous author tell us, and she's actually a friend of her family.
Yeah.
And she told us that when movies portray demons, what you're actually seeing is a real representation of what there's an actual demon who looks just like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is when they create something like that, there's an actual demon in hell or running around on earth, because it happens, that actually looks like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is Krampus like that? Is he a created figure of an actual demon? And since now that they freaking put him to Christmas, does he actually exist in a sense that he does come around on Christmas?
You know, there was one.
Because I mean, we can't dismiss Krampus as just a story, because
Yeah, that's why you're gonna like this. There was one account of Krampus being sighted.
interesting, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into
And
this.
I can't remember if there was like footage of it, but there was only one account.
Right.
So that's just like almost like a whole
Do you know how it went?
that puts that to the whole like Bigfoot type thing where
Right.
there's like one sighting and then bam,
right.
you know, we start getting all these sightings.
I mean,
everywhere.
when you have an entire country believing that there's a demon that comes around
Many
Christmas,
countries.
right? Many countries that believe that there's a demon coming around Christmas time. That it has to be, there has to be sightings,
Yeah.
and it's got to be put along the lines of Bigfoot. Like they see him,
yeah,
they see aliens. Is Krampus in there somewhere?
that's kind of interesting.
Do you know how this sighting?
Like, you know, there's like, you know, stories of Krampus in you know, Germany, Austria, Czech Republic, Bavaria, you know,
Right.
places like just
Okay.
all over the place.
So we have these things called masquerades,
Yeah,
and
in the Native American culture.
right. And what they do is they dress up as these scary people, or these actually women. They dress up as, a lot of them dress up as would be a native woman, but they make them have massive breasts and a big old butt. They dance around and they bother people. But during one of these masquerades, I know you remember this, is someone sent a picture. This is on a flip.
God, yeah,
this was
okay.
on a flip phone. They always had this lore about these masquerades, saying that there's actual demons walking around inside of the masquerade with you. And this is a Native American lore thing. Is when they're portraying these characters, it's actually not just, they're not just portraying native women, they're portraying monsters and things of that nature. Is that there was an actual being that was spotted, and it looked like almost like a large monkey, where it had a furry like figure, and it had a long tail. Remember that?
Yeah.
And it was looking directly at the camera, and this was not something anybody is going to wear to the masquerade.
Yeah.
This is not something you would buy at the time. No one's going to spend that amount of money on a costume like that.
Yeah.
So it's like when they do these festivals with Krampus, can it be
that the actual Krampus
is in there somewhere?
Is in there somewhere.
Right.
Like you see these masks, you see these outfits, these costumes, they're very elaborate.
Right.
Like they go all out.
They can move their mouths.
Their mouths move, their eyes glow.
Right.
And like they look like real demonic.
Right. And and they do actually go out and beat people in the crowd.
Yeah, like times. Teenagers and adults. Like they don't try to like.
I have to record on my phone because our camera is apparently out of time or battery. It might be the battery.
Maybe it is.
I could change the battery.
Yeah, but they actually go out and they, they're nice to the children, right. But the adults and the teenagers, yeah, they'll smack them.
Right.
they'll beat them. Like the people actually get bruises and stuff from them.
Right.
Yeah. So like those Krampus runs and those Krampus nights, they're actually like really, really interesting to look into. Like it is like their outfits and everything, they go all out. It's just like a really big thing now, and it's becoming more and more popular in the U.S. And like they're having these Krampus runs and these Krampus nights in bigger cities in the U.S. But Austria, like places in Austria and stuff, they're kind of like not really happy about it,
right?
Because the way Krampus is getting this whole pop culture revision. Because all these people are starting to go to Austria to see the origins and where it came from and all of that. So now they're just getting these big old crowds and hordes of people. And so, it's almost like they're just like a zoo now, like is what I heard. Like the word like kind of being said about it is like they're just watching them like their beliefs and everything is like a joke or something like that. So weird. It's just like looking at them like they're at a zoo looking at these animals and everything.
Oh my gosh.
Something that they believe in.
Right, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So they could be bringing Krampus to the United States, possibly.
They already have.
Right, and he could actually be an American lore figure now.
Yeah, there was actually one that was American. I can't remember the name, but it was really stupid.
Oh my god!
And it died out so fast.
Let's hear it. What is it?
I can't remember the name. I wish I remembered it, but like it was it just died right away.
Wow!
And I'm kind of glad it did.
Wait, an actual American
Krampus.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it was just so dumb.
Does that do for the podcast? We went for an hour.
Yeah, I mean, well, man, we have so much more still to cover, but.
I believe. Do you want to cover this in another episode some other time?
I guess we can. We can get deeper into it because there is a lot more that I wish we can get into, and we didn't really get a chance to touch on.
And then we can actually snake this on into Gryla, and then put that into the Da Vinci Code, things of that nature. Start going into that because it's all along around the same era, things of that nature.
Yeah, right? But the whole thing with Krampus is just like it's so dark. Like the way he punishes you, there's depending on how bad the things you did were.
Right.
He would either whip you, he would take you, and either drown you.
Wow.
Or basically drag you to hell or eat you.
Oh my god.
So there's all these different options that he uses depending on how bad your the things you've done that were naughty were.
He's got a wheelhouse of
so he's just like
punishments.
Yeah. So it's like it is, man. It's a dark story, but it's really interesting.
Well, I got a podcast to edit, and you got to get home and go to sleep.
Oh God, I know. I got to get up in a few hours.
So does that do for you?
For this podcast,
right?
I guess.
All right. So if you guys are listening out there on the podcasting platforms, make sure you search facebook.com/Fallen Hour, and that is YouTube at Fallen Hour, and Instagram at Fallen Hour. You can watch the podcast there and see us in the flesh. And if you guys are out there listening on Facebook and watching us on Facebook, make sure you search us on Spotify, Apple Podcast at Fallen Hour Radio. And if you guys want to support the podcast and help us buy more things like these lights, these lights are awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah. And help us go further with our podcast and get us on a better level with the podcast. We're on a good level right now, but there's resources we want, and we don't want to be breaking the bank. That being said, that is patreon.com/fallenhour. You'll help us out a lot. You guys get a lot of free perks, a lot of cool perks actually. And that is patreon.com/fallenhour. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. My name is Enick.
And it's almost my birthday.
Oh, right. Marcus's birthday is on the 25th. He's also the 4th.
You know what's funny? There's lore behind that.
Oh, funny.
Being born, like certain places, being born on Christmas is almost a bad thing. You're cursed, and guess what you're cursed with?
Krampus?
No, you literally werewolf. Becoming a werewolf. There's werewolf lore about Christmas,
which is funny because Marcus has no body hair at all.
I know, so that's a sad thing. But what's crazy is like the Salem witch trials,
right?
There was actual werewolf trials.
Oh my god, I did not know that. So
if I was back like in these times in that place, I probably would have been tried as a werewolf.
Oh my god, that'd be so fun. I'd be like, yes, he was born on this day. He is a werewolf, but he's a runt. Is that what they call it?
A hairless werewolf.
The runt? Is that the runt? They call it the runt?
I don't know.
What's the like
with
when
the
you,
little
like when you buy a cat or something and it's like freaking too hairy to even comprehend. It's got more hair than makes sense. They call it is it the runt?
Usually the runt is the little one.
Right. So Marcus
and I'm not little. So.
Marcus is the runt of the werewolf. He's got no body hair. I remember hearing a story of Marcus looking for body hair. He's like,
all right, let's wrap this up now.
All right, that being said, my name is Enick. This is Marcus. We want to wish you guys a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I hope many of you guys don't wake up on Christmas Day with a bunch of whips or in hell. My name is
Enick. Wake up nursing your wounds.
Right. My name is Enick. I hope you guys have an amazing Christmas, and you're listening to Fallen Hour Radio. Sound good?